Since the earliest days of humanity, people have looked toward the sky with awe and questions about what exists beyond Earth. Long before modern science and technology, holy books and ancient scriptures described extraordinary events connected to the heavens, beings descending from above, radiant lights in the sky, and movements that could not be explained by human ability. These descriptions were understood as divine signs, angels, jinn, or other creations of God, not as machines in the modern sense. Centuries later, with the rise of aviation and space exploration, similar unexplained sightings began to be reported again, this time by pilots, soldiers, scientists, and civilians. These sightings were given a modern term: UFOs, unidentified flying objects. A UFO does not mean aliens. It simply means an object observed in the sky whose nature is unknown. What makes this phenomenon profound is that it exists at the intersection of faith and observation. Holy books teach that creation is vast, that the heavens contain realities beyond human knowledge, and that not all beings are visible or understood by mankind. Science, on the other hand, records radar tracks, flight data, and eyewitness accounts of objects that move in ways beyond known technology. For some people, these events are reminders of the limits of human understanding. For others, they raise questions about other forms of life or intelligence within God's creation. For many, they remain simply unexplained signs in the sky. Governments have denied, dismissed, and later acknowledged the existence of unidentified aerial phenomena. Yet acknowledgement has not brought answers. Whether these phenomena are natural, technological, spiritual, or something not yet understood, one truth remains consistent with both faith and science. Human knowledge is limited, and the universe is far greater than what we currently comprehend. The mystery of UFOs is therefore not a challenge to belief, but a reflection of humanity's ongoing attempt to understand creation itself. Before we continue, if mysteries like this fascinate you, subscribe to Echoes of Mystery. Join us as we explore the unknown, one true story at a time. The Roswell Incident, the beginning of the UFO era. In the summer of 1947, the world stood at the edge of a new age. The Second World War had ended, nuclear weapons had been revealed, and humanity had begun to realize how powerful and how dangerous its own technology had become. It was during this tense moment in history that something unusual happened in the desert of New Mexico, near the small town of Roswell. In early July, a rancher named William Brazel discovered strange debris scattered across his land. It was unlike anything he had seen before. The pieces were light, metallic, and oddly durable. Some appeared crumpled, yet when released, they returned to their original shape. Unsure of what he had found, Brazel contacted local authorities. Soon after, the U.S. Army Air Forces arrived and collected the debris. Then something extraordinary happened. On July 8, 1947, the military issued an official press release stating that it had recovered a flying disc. Newspapers across the country printed the headline. For the first time in history, the possibility of something unknown in the sky entered the public mind. But the excitement did not last long. On July 8, 1947, the military issued an official press release stating that it had recovered a flying disc. Newspapers across the country printed the headline. For the first time in history, the possibility of something unknown in the sky entered the public mind. But the excitement did not last long. Within hours, the military reversed its statement. The flying disc was suddenly explained away as a weather balloon. Photographs were released showing officers posing with ordinary debris. The case, officials said, was closed. Yet for many people, this explanation raised more questions than it answered. Witnesses later claimed the debris shown in the photographs was not what had been recovered from the ranch. Some described materials that could not be burned, cut, or bent permanently. Others spoke of unusual military activity, roads blocked, areas sealed off, and strict warnings to remain silent. Over the following decades, former military personnel, civilians, and researchers began to speak out. Some claimed that the object was not a weather balloon at all, but something far more advanced. Others suggested it was part of a top-secret military experiment, unknown even to many officers at the time. In the 1990s, the U.S. government released new reports stating that the debris was linked to Project Mogul, a classified program using high-altitude balloons to detect nuclear tests. While this explanation addressed some details, it did not satisfy everyone. Critics questioned why such secrecy would require an immediate public announcement about a flying disc, followed by a rapid reversal. Others asked why witnesses described materials unlike anything used in balloon technology of that era. What makes Roswell especially important is not just what happened, but what followed. After 1947, reports of unidentified objects in the sky increased dramatically. Pilots, radar operators, and civilians around the world began reporting sightings of strange craft moving in ways that defied known aircraft capabilities. Roswell became the symbolic beginning of the modern UFO phenomenon. To believers, it represents a moment when something extraordinary was briefly revealed, then quickly hidden. To skeptics, it remains a lesson in Cold War secrecy and misunderstanding. To historians, it marks a turning point in how governments manage information and how the public reacts to the unknown. More than 70 years later, the Roswell incident remains unresolved. No matter which explanation one accepts, one fact is undeniable. That summer in 1947 changed how humanity looks at the sky forever, and the questions raised in the desert of New Mexico are still being asked today. The Ariel School Incident. Another remarkable UFO encounter took place not in a military base or restricted airspace, but in one of the most unexpected locations imaginable, a school playground. On the morning of September 16, 1994, at Ariel Primary School in Rwanda, Zimbabwe, classes were in session as usual. During the mid-morning break, teachers were inside a staff meeting, leaving children outside to play. That was when something unusual appeared in the sky. Several students noticed a shiny object descending beyond the school grounds. At first, they thought it was an airplane, but the object moved silently, slowly, and with complete control. Moments later, it landed in a grassy area near the playground. More children gathered, watching in confusion and curiosity. According to the students, the object was disc-shaped and metallic, reflecting sunlight. What happened next is what made this case extraordinary. The children said small beings emerged from the object. They described them as short, with thin bodies, long arms, and large dark eyes. Some said the beings moved in an unnatural way, almost floating. Fear spread quickly. Some children ran. Others stood frozen, unable to look away. The most disturbing detail came later. Several children reported that the beings communicated without speaking, sending images and feelings directly into their minds. The messages, they said, were warnings about technology, environmental destruction, and the future of the Earth. When teachers returned, the object and the beings were gone. At first, adults were skeptical. But when investigators and psychologists arrived, they did something important. They interviewed the children individually. The result was unexpected. The children, ranging from 6 to 12 years old, gave remarkably consistent descriptions. They used similar words, drew similar images, and described the same sequence of events, without being allowed to speak to each other beforehand. One of the psychologists involved noted that the children showed genuine emotional responses, not signs of coaching or imagination. Years later, as adults, many of them were interviewed again, and their stories remained unchanged. What makes the Ariel School incident powerful is not physical evidence, but human testimony. Dozens of witnesses. No financial motive. No desire for attention. Long-term consistency. There was no known aircraft in the area. No hoax was proven. No official explanation satisfied investigators. For some, the incident suggests contact with something non-human. For others, it raises questions about consciousness and perception. For many, it remains one of the most credible mass UFO sightings ever recorded. Unlike Roswell, this case involved no military secrecy, no classified documents, and no advanced technology, only children describing what they saw. And sometimes, it is precisely that simplicity that makes the mystery harder to dismiss. These events remain unexplained, leaving questions that still echo today. If you want to explore more real mysteries like this, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective is part of the mystery.